Welcome everyone to another episode of Creath and Creatives, where we dive into talented minds of creatives. We get to know how it's going, how it's been, their artistic journey and their creative process. Today we have with us Mr. Chuma Anagbado. Without further ado, diving into today's episode, please sir, can you give us, an introduction to your artistic background and, how you got your inspiration basically into your medium of art?
Yeah, thank you for coming. I think art chose me. Because I think back, I've just been, every time I've tried to veer off a path, it usually brings me back. So I've been very, very art inclined or artistic or maker inclined, as I'll say, from childhood. And yeah, I find myself here practicing art. It's a very long story, so I think I just start with 2021.
Okay.
But before that, I'm originally trained as an artist, formally. And I'd like to also say informally because I used to move around art centers, art workshops, and just get my hands around things. Yeah. So I did find and apply that in the University of Benin, but I didn't practice. And then I went into advertising for about 15 years and consulting. And then COVID happened. Yeah, COVID did a lot of research for people. And from that point, a bit reluctantly, I started, practicing. But all through my life, I've always just scribbled somewhere, drawn something somewhere. And I think it all came together, being a trained sculptor, getting the art influence from the Soka Art School, which does wood paneling. I happen to have also met the likes of Uchoke at some point in my life, who their works actually inspired me. And having those line drawings and then going the whole route of just creating illustrations. And yeah, I mean, it's a long story, but today, 2021, I started out practicing art fully, got a gig from a friend that kind of paid off a bit. And that led to my first solo exhibition and then to the second. And now we are here. I think wood came naturally as a function of me being a sculptor, which is what I experimented with in school back then. I did a lot of wood and metal work. And then the laser machine also was picked up at some point in my design career, making products and rummaging through places like Shomolu and all of that. Yeah. So I would say it's a sum total of my experience as a human being for now, and which is always changing or rather improving. Yeah.
That's good to know. So your work is revolved around a lot of, vibrancy, and I feel like your style of work has taken to traditional medium, right? And can you give us a sneak peek into your creative process from the beginning to the final process of an art piece?
Honestly, I create a lot of things. It usually starts with a picture, right? It could be a picture taken with a photograph. It could be a picture that I have as a figment of my imagination. I just see a very vivid picture because oftentimes I actually see my work in complete color before I start drawing. And yeah, I pick up a pen, pencil, or drawing pad, pen, and start drawing. And that drawing then goes on to the laser machine, being a vector file, which then etches it onto wood. And then I bring the wood back into my home studio to then paint. Now, choice of colors is very obvious because this part of the world, Africa, has a lot of sunlight, and sunlight brings out a lot of color. The absence of light is darkness, right? Which is why I think a lot of people in Europe are kind of low-key depressed because there's no sunlight. But here you have too much energy from the sun and everything is bright. It comes out in the way we speak. We speak energetically, forcefully. There's a lot of energy. People are moving around, we call it gra-gra. So it comes through in the colors as well. you see lots of colors in Africa, and you'd see that in our traditional practice, in most parts of Africa, there's a lot of color in every tradition, right? Which is what they get. So yeah, I try to represent my culture in its totality. And color is a very strong aspect of that. So that explains the vibrant colors you find in the work. Yeah.
Thank you. The theme of identity shows really well in your art. You're smiling. So I feel like you have a lot to tell us when it comes to this. So does your background or personal experience have anything to do with how you came about this style of work?
Yep, 100%. Identity in my work, I think, is inevitable at this time. Maybe in future I may switch a bit, but identity is really a direct response to a lived experience. Being someone that is of Igbo ethnicity in Nigeria, we have a history where there was a war, obviously, and there were effects that came with that. And one of them, which is the major one, is people from where I'm from being forced to be less of who they are to be accepted in society, right? So you needed to drop those things that made you Igbo to become Tush, quote unquote. So when you say something is a boutique, it means that thing is very, rich, kind of, right? And that's the name of a whole ethnic group, over 40 million persons, that is more than Italy, Spain, France. I don't know, and that kind of had an effect on me growing up. And then coming to Lagos, it also became very glaring, right? It's always there. It's always there. It's always been there. You're trying to get a house and you would hear comments like, this son is on Moibo.
You have to be Yoruba.
Yes, there are things that may have caused that, but it being at that general scale, being practiced and accepted, and then we accepting it kind of, right? Because the Igbos now have the most English names. The Igbos don't speak Igbo. And yeah, that whole image or identity clean of laundering just to belong or to be accepted hasn't really gotten us anywhere.
Yeah. Not to drag Nigerians, right? We're very accepting of a lot of things that are thrown at us.
Yeah. So you'd find that when you come back to the East, for instance, the people that are looked up to are the ones that have assimilated as much foreign culture as they can, right? So they speak French, or they speak very good English, like the Queen, or they don't dress. I don't just they don't eat swallow for it. I don't know, just anything that is us, right? Anything else but us. And I think I took it upon myself to, say, how do you make people like their culture? It's in, and this is one of the answers that came to me, it's in going into that reality that they live in, which is the modern world, which is assimilating other cultures, and present something, right? Because a lot of these things that is also our culture have also not been developed, they've been abandoned. So they've been left there. So you need to create something, recreate it or reimagine it in such a way that when people see it, they will be like, I actually like this. It's my culture. And then that starts a conversation around, what is this? Where is it from? Right? I think that's on one part. And then on the other part is also documentation, right? Because as the world is becoming a global village, cultures are merging, one over the other, swallowing each other or dominating the other one. It's important that we also document aspects of our culture. So it just became very natural that it comes out through my work. And masquerading as a theme has also become very a reoccurring theme in my work, because in its existence, it carries the entirety of our culture, yeah? From music to art to sculpture to fashion to performance. It's all in one, masquerading as an art. So yeah, it's a response to the loss of the Civil War, the loss of identity. I mean, I've been in classrooms where people will be asked, "What's your name?" And the person says, "My name is Emeka." And then the teacher goes, "Oh, you are Igbo." And the guy says, "No, I'm not Igbo." It's really confusing, right? If it's confusing for people that accept to be Igbos, then how much more the person that is speaking, bearing an Igbo name and then saying, "I am not this." It's that deep. So I try to use the value of beauty, aesthetic, right? Because beauty, whichever way you look at it, attracts. So I'm making sure that my work is very beautiful. So it has a very high visual appeal, which drags you. But then it's also very modern because I'm using like the latest technologies. I'm drawing on an iPad, I'm etching with the laser machine. So it's all modern. That becomes like entry points for whoever is interacting with the work to be like, okay, I know this technology. It's not ancient, so I can relate with it. But then what I'm looking at is very traditional or ancient. So it opens up that conversation and a kind of reappraisal for people to then look at and say, "Oh, this is my culture." So in essence, I'm reimagining aspects of the Igbo culture. I'm presenting it through my art so that people would look at it and be proud of it, of who they are. And the whole goal is, at the end of the day, you want to build a nation in a state of mind, and it's by rooting your essence in who you are. Yeah.
As an artist who has practiced art across borders, of Nigeria, going to Kenya, what do you feel has been the most significant, impact based on, how you perceive the Kenyan art scene to be, and then moving back to Nigeria? What do you feel like is the major difference or major impact on your style of work?
Okay, so Nigerian art scene or art world is bigger.
Okay.
In terms of value, I think. The Kenyan art market is more sophisticated. I don't know if this makes sense. It's actually bigger in the sense that you have a lot more international demography in Kenya because it's the third UN capital in the world. So, I mean, UN alone has about 15,000 or so direct staff working with their families. So you can imagine that population plus all the people that come in. So it's a very global community. So they will come with their tastes and all of that. So there's a mid-tier art market going on there. The Nigerian art market, on the other hand, is bigger, obviously. We have more artists and all of that. But I think the major difference for me would be sophistication. So I was only able to finally have my work etched on wood in Nairobi. And that has to do with available technology. Power, for instance. It takes about 15 to 20 hours to complete one etching of my work.
Wow.
So when you think that, how would somebody in Shomolu, for instance, run their machines for that long? They don't even know how to put a cost to it because it's just too much. That's like a whole day work. Meanwhile, if they have all those small people running in and stuff, they're making a lot more money. So that was a very big impediment for me realizing it. So technically, the Kenyan market made it easy for me to come up with a finished product or art form, as the case may be. There's also the wood part, the raw material. You don't find natural hardwood that is seasoned and easily in Nigeria, because we don't have all of that available. But in East Africa, it's readily available, all documented, taped, each linking to where it was harvested from. And then, of course, the technical craftsmanship. I think the Kenyans are a bit way more advanced than us in terms of attention to details, meticulous. craftsness is, they produce a lot more than us, right? I mean, we are almost at the point of depending on our West African brothers to do anything skillful because we're just all there for them. So we've lost that. So I think those are the differences. And then, of course, I think I got into the eyes of the world in Nairobi as a Nigerian. Nigerians also come with a lot of energy and a lot of hard work because of where we are coming from, where you really have to outdo yourself to even have your head seen. And then you come into a space where everybody's like chilled and then you're doing your normal thing, which then appears to them as like, this person is just on a roll, right? Which is the Nigerian thing. So I think that mix of factors kind of made the limelight to just easily shine. And then that kind of put me out there. And then it made it easier for me relocating back to Lagos to then know exactly how I would go about sourcing materials because now I thought I'd gotten to the end of the process and ultimately had to also get my own machine equipment because it wasn't going to be sustainable having to rent the equipment. So yeah.
How did you come about using wood as your, concurrent style of work or medium rather?
Yeah, so how do I start using wood? Okay, so I think it's, I dial back to 2004, 5. Those were my final years in art school, being taken through different materials and methods. I found wood very interesting because it's strong, but then it's soft. You can chip off wood to get any different forms. And then we had like lots of ebony wood, which I find really fascinating in Benin then. It has the black core and then the brown. So by the time you go through that, so I just liked wood as a material and I tried to fuse it with metal a lot. But then it's also then rooted in the Igbo culture, right? Because we do lots of wood paneling for compound doors, walls. There's this very decorative patterning that goes on wood. If you also look at a lot of the work that is coming from the Nsukka Art School artists, you would see lots of wood paneling. So I think that came like just naturally being from that space in my head, like, okay, I think I like to use wood. And it's easy to etch for me because I've done some etching as a designer, making products. So in starting my art career, I went the route of using canvas first, right? Because I came back into art through digital art and NFTs and all of that. So transferring back to material, I did the canvas thing, but that wasn't really me. And my first 2 exhibitions were canvas works. This is actually going to, my next exhibition with Creath is actually going to be the first woodwork solo exhibition. So in a very light, real sense, I can actually call it my first solo exhibition. Yeah. But it's the 3rd. So wood just came naturally. And then what wood? I'd mentioned about not being able to find hardwood in Nigeria and then joining them. Even the joinery was a problem. I was able to achieve that in Kenya, but coming back to Nigeria means losing that capacity. So what do? The artist creates with whatever it is that is in the environment. So I started out using plywood, which didn't work out well. And then I came across pallet wood boards that are used for importation. And that has kind of layers of meaning hidden in it, right? The same route that slaves were taken out of Africa is the same route which this wood is being
very significant.
Yes, so there's a relationship between slave trade and capitalism, right? And consumerism, which is one of the things that is killing us. Like 3 of them actually: slavery, capitalism, consumerism. They're all making us not live our best lives. So this is a byproduct of importation, capitalism, that whole shipping route destroying the earth. And instead of throwing it away, even though lots of furniture people now use it for work, I thought it would be nice to use it because then it then standardizes my art in terms of a material choice in my practice. Because wherever I find myself in the world, it would be easy to find pallet wood, pallet plywood, because every country imports stuff. So I think I kind of just settled on that, and it looks good in color and it has its own patterns as well. But I'm not like going to be stuck on it. I mean, the way my practice is going, maybe in the next 5 years, I may not even be etching on wood, technically speaking, because I'm looking at working on metal, for instance, etching on metal for outdoor sculptures. And I think I'm just going to keep experimenting at that intersection of moving things from their digital existence to physical and back, because that's how we are going to live. Yeah, but for now, it's wood, and the wood I'm using is pallet plywood, which is readily available anywhere in the world. I've done blockboard, plywood, and all kinds of wood, and you'll see them in my work.
I think we're all looking forward to how diverse that's going to be, you know, from wood to metal. Yeah. That's great. So your creative process, you spoke about that already. A lot of artists do often encounter creative blocks, you know, during their creative process and all of that. So you as an artist, can you tell us if you have ever encountered it and how you overcame it?
I think and I think maybe this is the first time I'm going to say this. I don't have creative blocks. And for two reasons. One, if you practice advertising, then it's be difficult to have creative blocks. Advertising kind of trains you on how to think and how to create. It's almost like giving you a method to create. I know this will sound a bit hard, but when you learn how to create, how to think consistently for years, then it becomes a part of you to create stuff. You know how to just look around, observe, see patterns, put things together, and just something new is out. So I think I was trained in advertising on how to think and how to create. That's one reason. The other reason is because my work is built centered on around identity. There's just so much within a culture that is lying fallow that it needs to be picked up. So what I lack or what I need as an artist is probably more hours in a day or more days in a week to be able to do what has been shown to me, like outlined. I get tired, of course, so that may be like creative tiredness or creative tired block. I don't know if any word like that exists, but that's what I experience. But do I have moments that I have creative block? Generally, no. It would be at points where I'm maybe trying to switch up something. So I have everything. I have things scattered in different compartments in my head. It's how do I mix it together to have a different outcome, right? Because you can mix and have another outcome. You can have so many outcomes in one with the same ingredient. So that may qualify as creative block. So that would be my point of creative. But it's not really a block because then I can always just keep creating something else, right? Yeah, I don't think in the rare sense of the word, ever have creative blocks.
As an indigenous Nigerian artist, do you often see your work as a tool for social commentary or activism?
I think naturally, by virtue of it being a reflection, a statement on ideology, it's inevitable that it can be termed an activist tool. I mean, there's a point I used to describe myself as an activist. In my design days, I call myself a design activist. I think I'm also an art activist because it is really, really takes a lot of courage for someone to say, my work is quote and unquote erotic, right? Because if you exist in a society where you don't get things when you are of your identity, right? You need to drop it. Then you can imagine how it would be for you to come and say, oh, my artwork is of this thing that people don't like. What it simply means is patronage, eyes. So it can flip both ways. it's a big risk for you to come and say, this thing that people don't like, that's what my work represents. So I took a gamble. And I think that's like the highest form of activism, taking a stand and saying, I stand for this, whatever it is, whether I'm wrong or right, or whether it's right or wrong, I stand for this because I'm doing this. And also because it's not a personal, push kind of, right? I mean, I could decide to say as an artist, I want to do things around LGBTQ and I'll get the attention like that, right? I can decide to play to the gallery and try to just splash colors like Basquiat and put some crowns and I get some sales, right? And then people can relate with it and say, oh, this is another protege in the making and all of that. But I've always believed that, permit me for want of a better word, crap gets you to the top, but it won't keep you there.
True.
Right? I don't think I want to get to the top playing to the gallery or not being authentically who I am. I would rather not get to the top and remain who I am than try to be what I am not. So I think that's like the definition of activism. And that's social commentary, because when you talk about well over 40 million persons, then that really falls within the ambits of socialism and social construct. So, yeah.
Okay. So, have you ever worked on any collaborative project before, and did you encounter any challenges, and how were you able to overcome them?
I've done a lot of collaborative projects. I think one of the things that happens when it comes to collaboration is really trying to fuse, right? Because creatives, artists are usually very protective of their work, to the point of not, you know, the artist wants his thing or her thing to show, right? But collaboration really requires that you just let go of who you are and see the parts of all of you that can come together to then create something new. So I've been in collaborations where people just wanted to have what it is that is their practice to come through. And in those instances, I usually just pull back and just play like an observatory role and contribute wherever I can contribute, or look at what it is that they are doing and see how I can even put myself into it. And because what I'm creating is relatively new, I don't think there's any artist in the whole of Africa that combines the processes I use in creating my work. That's relatively new, and that's true to me. So coming into collaborations, bringing that level of newness can also be a bit rough-edged with some other person. So I've had to smoothen that by just, taking a back seat and then seeing what is going on and then impute myself. And at the end of the day, it always turns out that it blends. My input comes through and then it shines. So yeah, there are some that have been relatively a disaster. Not known to the public, but internally, and we just keep it going, keep it moving, right? But I love collaborations a lot. It's actually, the bedrock of my work. I look forward to more collaborations, and I look forward to meaningful ones as well. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Are you working on any, upcoming projects that you want to tell us about?
Well, like I said, I have my solo exhibition coming up. I'll keep that on the wraps for now. But it's with an organization that I think, I tell people that I think the organization was actually designed for me. Like their business model clearly screams this kind of artist, right? Because my work is phygital. I would always experiment between the physical and digital existence, trying to move things around. And here is a company that says, we are trying to digitize physical art and we are trying to leverage blockchain to grow. I think that's just a natural fit. So I'm working with them to have a solo, which will be coming up soon. And yeah, there's a lot of projects actually going on there. I mean, not even top of my head, like there are collaborations with brands ongoing. And there's also, me just creating stuff, because they say the artist is their own problem, actually. Trying to create so many things, so many ventures or projects that I want to, like this collection, that collection, and all that. But yeah, I'm just keeping with the pace. It's also very difficult in the country now to just move around a lot. So you need to be careful with resources, your time, and all of that, and just be cool and take it easy. So I'm just taking it day calmly and slowly as they come.
All right. Balancing your artistic passion with the harsh realities of, our current situation, the economic state of Nigeria. How do you navigate through all of that as an artist?
Okay, I think let's establish that Nigeria has always been a hard place for starters. Yeah, so it's just getting harder and harder. I have what I call luck to have been in paid employment and as well cut my teeth in entrepreneurship, built a couple of companies, some that were successful and some that were not. Even building one right now. I've always believed in being a realist and not putting my head in the clouds. So going back into art practice, it was very obvious to me that income has to come from somewhere else, at least for the first 5, 6, 7, I don't know, as long as possible before the art picks up, if it ever picks up. So I have a design firm that I run, that I founded, and it's still there. It's being running. So I get incomes from there. But again, it's not easy as well because it's Nigeria. But what I can say is that art is really rewarding, and you don't want to go into art for the money because it will be very obvious and it will come through in your practice. It will show that this person just came here for the money, for the commerce. But if you go in for a reason, like we've identified activism or for identity, or, just because it makes you happy, really, and it is a sum total of your skill set and your ability, so it's true to you as a person, then you are what we call in your bag, right? It's just a matter of time, because something also happens with time, being consistent with time. So it's not easy, but then again, we live in a world where the internet has kind of accelerated the art world, and it's changed. The art world of today is different from the art world of 3, 4, 5 years ago. And I think post-COVID, there's a lot more conversation around art being a store of value, which necessitates more artworks to be created, which requires more artists. So you have a situation where a lot of persons are just jumping in to practice art, which of course then requires more curation, because we need to know what is what and what is worth it. So it's a good time to be alive, honestly, because I think the guys that practice art before the age of the internet, and I keep going back to the internet, and I think I do that because the internet was actually a tipping point, a game changer in the art world, just like it's done in music. It's brought things around fractionalization, digitization, having value around objects or artworks, in this case, digital artworks, for instance. And more importantly, having eyes on the artist, right? Because before now, you needed exposure from a gallery who would then put you in the papers and radio and TV, traditional forms of advertising. But now you have a democratized tool like the internet, which the artist is now their own promoter. So you have the whole influencer thing going on, which has also affected media, and brands are even now reaching more people. So the scales have tipped, and that tool has then made it easy for artists to then emerge and show their work to the world without any intermediary, which has its own advantages and disadvantages. But this is the world we live in. And a lot more people are becoming, opening themselves up to the art world, the value in it, because it is real business, actually. Business for the people that have the money. But it is big business and the returns are very high. And what happened in COVID, people are questioning why currency should be in gold. Right? Gold is just what we picked up from the earth and refined it. Yes. But here is art, something that has finite supply, because once the artist moves on to the next plane in this existence, then there won't be any more to create, which automatically means that this thing has value.
Yeah.
Right. And then, yeah, so there's a lot of value around art that weren't there before. So there's a lot more chance to become a successful artist at different levels. So it's a good time to practice art, really.
All right. Before we go, I would love you, to give us the, art enthusiast and artists who are looking to start their artistic journey, some sort of advice on how to go about it all.
I think it's everything else, nothing really matters except the art, to be honest. If you really want to get somewhere significant as an artist, then everything should be around art. I mean, your skills, your time, you should sleep, eat, breathe, live art, right? You should be authentic. Don't try to copy. That's like rule number one. Don't try to copy. Try to create something that is original to you. And I'll just say, and this is from me personally, innovate. Try to create something new that nobody has done before. And you just have passed your first test in becoming a great artist. Yeah, so everything for the art.
All right, everyone, that's our time for this episode of Creath and Creatives, and we hope to see you guys on the next episode where we dive into the minds of talented creatives. And we'd say a very big thank you to Mr. Chuma for being on this episode.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the riveting questions.
All right, everyone, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.